The Josian era clung to its traditions like a stubborn vine, its rigid social hierarchy dictating every aspect of life. In a small, impoverished village nestled amidst rolling hills, lived Dizon, a young man of 20 summers. His days were spent toiling in the fields, his hands calloused from labor, his brow perpetually furrowed with worry. For Dizon was burdened by a filial duty, caring for his ailing father, whose legs had long since given way. Their humble dwelling, a dilapidated hut with a roof threatening to cave in, echoed with the silence of their meager existence. One sweltering afternoon, as Dizon returned from the fields, his body aching, his spirit weary, he found his father slumped against the earthen wall, his breath shallow, his face ashen. A wave of panic washed over Dizon, and he frantically searched for the village physician. But the physician, a portly man with a penchant for coin, merely shook his head, his gaze filled with pity. "The old man's time is near," he murmured, his words like a death knell. Dizon's heart sank, a cold dread creeping into his bones. He couldn't bear the thought of losing his father, the only family he had left. That night, Dizon knelt by his father's bedside, his tears falling silently onto the worn straw mat. He prayed to the heavens, pleading for a miracle, for any chance to save his father's life. As dawn approached, exhaustion finally claimed him, and he drifted into a troubled sleep. In his dreams, a figure emerged from the swirling mists, a monk with a serene countenance and eyes that seemed to pierce his very soul. The monk spoke in a voice that resonated deep within Dizon's being. "Your filial piety has touched the heavens, young man. But your path is fraught with peril. A dark omen hangs over you, a premature death that threatens to extinguish your flame before it has a chance to burn bright." Dizon's heart pounded in his chest, his dreamlike state intensifying his fear. "What can I do?" he pleaded, his voice trembling. "How can I avert this tragic fate?" The monk's lips curved into a gentle smile. "The threads of destiny are woven in mysterious ways," he replied. "But they are not unbreakable. There is a way, a path that can lead you to salvation. Within 100 days, you must find a woman who has known the embrace of marriage, yet has been widowed by fate. Only through the joining of your bodies can the curse be lifted, and your life spared." The monk's image faded, the mists swirled once more, and Dizon awoke with a start, his heart still racing, the monk's words echoing in his mind. He sat up, his brow furrowed, his thoughts in turmoil. Could this dream be true? Was it a sign, a message from the heavens? Or was it merely a figment of his weary imagination? Yet, deep within his heart, Dizon felt a flicker of hope, a desperate longing to believe that this was indeed a chance, however improbable, to escape his impending doom. He looked at his father, still breathing shallowly, his face etched with pain. Dizon knew what he had to do. He had to try, however impossible the task seemed. He had to find this woman, this widow who held the key to his survival. The weight of the monk's words pressed heavily on Dizon's shoulders as he stepped out of his humble abode, the rising sun casting long shadows that seemed to mock his desperate plight. Where was he to find such a woman, a widow who had known both love and loss? The village was small, its inhabitants mostly simple folk, their lives intertwined in the rhythm of the seasons. Dizon knew every soul, every family, yet none fit the description of the woman he sought. Days turned into weeks, and Dizon's hope dwindled with each passing sunrise. He wandered through the village, his eyes searching, his heart heavy. He inquired about widows, but the villagers merely shook their heads, their faces etched with sympathy. Some whispered about a noble woman, a widow of renowned beauty and grace, who resided in a grand estate on the outskirts of the village. But she was a woman of high standing, untouchable, her life as far removed from Dizon's as the stars from the earth. Dizon's father, sensing his son's despair, offered words of comfort, his voice raspy, his breath weak. "Do not lose heart, my son," he said, his eyes filled with love. "The heavens do not abandon those who are pure of heart. Have faith, and your path will be revealed." Deezen nodded, forcing a smile, but his heart remained shrouded in doubt. He continued his search, driven by a desperate hope, a flicker of belief that miracles could indeed happen. One evening, as he returned from the fields, his body weary, his spirit broken, he noticed a commotion in the village square. A crowd had gathered. Their voices hushed, their faces filled with awe. Deezen approached, curious, and saw a sedan chair, ornately decorated, carried by 4 men in elegant livery. Inside, he knew, resided the noblewoman, the widow of whispered rumors. She was on her way to the village temple, a place of solace and prayer, where she sought refuge from her grief. Deezen's heart skipped a beat. Could this be the woman the monk had spoken of? He watched as the sedan chair passed by, his eyes drawn to the delicate figure within. She was indeed beautiful, her face etched with a quiet sadness, her eyes filled with a depth of emotion that spoke of a life lived, a love lost. A sudden gust of wind blew open the curtains of the sedan chair, revealing the widow's face in its full splendor. Deezen gasped, his breath catching in his throat. She was even more beautiful than he had imagined, her features delicate, her skin radiant, her presence exuding an aura of grace and refinement. Their eyes met for a fleeting moment, a spark of recognition passing between them. The widow's gaze lingered on Deezen, her expression unreadable, before the curtains closed once more, shrouding her from view. Deezen's heart pounded in his chest, a mix of excitement and trepidation coursing through his veins. He knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that she was the one. She was the widow, the woman who held the key to his destiny. But how could he, a mere peasant, a man of no consequence, ever hope to reach her, to bridge the chasm that separated their worlds? As the sedan chair disappeared into the distance, Deezen felt a surge of determination. He would not give up. He would find a way, no matter how impossible it seemed. He would reach her, and he would fulfill the prophecy. Not just to save his own life, but also to find the love that he knew was destined for him. Deezen's mind raced, his thoughts a whirlwind of hope and uncertainty. How could he, a man of such humble origins, even dare to approach a woman of her stature? The social chasm that separated them seemed insurmountable, a vast gulf that could never be bridged. Yet, the monk's words echoed in his mind, urging him forward, reminding him of the life that hung in the balance. He sought counsel from his father, who listened with a mixture of concern and hope. "My son," the old man said, his voice weak but filled with wisdom, "destiny often works in mysterious ways. Do not let your humble station deter you. Have faith in your heart, and the path will reveal itself." Inspired by his father's words, Deezen embarked on a mission to find a way to reach the noblewoman. He learned that her name was Ji Hai, and that she was a woman of great compassion and kindness, despite her noble birth. She often visited the village temple, not just to pray, but also to offer alms to the poor and needy. Deezen decided to take his chances. He would go to the temple, hoping to catch a glimpse of her, perhaps even find a way to speak to her. The next day, he dressed in his best attire, which was still rather shabby, and made his way to the temple. The temple was a place of serene beauty, its ancient architecture imbued with a sense of peace and tranquility. Deezen waited patiently, his heart pounding in his chest, as the villagers gathered, hoping to receive the noblewoman's charity. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the temple grounds, Ji Hai arrived, her sedan chair carried by her attendants. She was even more beautiful than Deezen remembered, her face radiating a gentle kindness that touched all who beheld her. Deezen watched as she distributed alms to the villagers, her movements graceful, her words filled with compassion. He knew that this was his chance, his only chance to speak to her. He approached cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest, and bowed respectfully before her. "Noblewoman," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "I beg a moment of your time." Ji Hai turned her gaze towards him, her eyes filled with curiosity. She saw a young man, his clothes simple but clean, his face intelligent and kind. There was something about him that intrigued her. A depth of emotion that resonated with her own. "Speak freely," she said, her voice soft and melodious. Deezen hesitated for a moment, gathering his courage. He knew that his words would sound strange, even unbelievable, but he had to try. He had to tell her the truth. He recounted his dream, the monk's prophecy, the impending doom that hung over him. He spoke of his filial duty, his love for his father, his desperation to save his own life. Ji Hai listened intently, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she remained silent for a long moment, her eyes fixed on his. Deezen's heart sank. He had expected her to dismiss him as a madman, to laugh at his outlandish tale. But she didn't. Instead, she looked at him with a strange mixture of pity and understanding. "I have heard your words," she said finally, her voice soft but firm. "And I believe you." Deezen's eyes widened in surprise. "You believe me?" he asked, incredulous. Ji Hai nodded. "I have had dreams of my own," she said, her voice filled with a hint of sadness. "Dreams that speak of a destiny intertwined with yours." Ji Hai's words hung in the air, a delicate thread of hope woven into the fabric of Deezen's despair. He gazed at her, his eyes filled with gratitude, his heart overflowing with a newfound sense of purpose. He knew that she was the woman destined to share his fate. To help him avert the tragic end that loomed before him. But how could he, a man of such humble origins, ever hope to bridge the chasm that separated them? She was a noble woman, revered by all, her life a tapestry of silk and privilege, while his was a rough-hewn existence of toil and hardship. Ji Hai, sensing his unspoken question, offered a gentle smile. "Do not let your doubts cloud your judgment, Deezen," she said, her voice soft and reassuring. "Destiny has brought us together, and it is not for us to question its wisdom. We must trust in the path that has been laid before us, however uncertain it may seem." She extended her hand towards him. A gesture of trust, a bridge across the divide that separated their worlds. Deezen hesitated for a moment, his calloused hand trembling slightly as he reached out to take hers. Her touch was gentle, her skin soft and warm, a stark contrast to the roughness of his own. As their hands met, a spark seemed to pass between them. An unspoken connection that resonated deep within their souls. Deezen felt a surge of warmth, a sense of belonging that he had never experienced before. He knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that he had found his other half, the woman who was meant to be his. Ji Hai led him away from the crowd, towards a secluded corner of the temple grounds, where they could speak in private. She told him of her own dreams, dreams that echoed the monk's prophecy, dreams that spoke of a destiny intertwined with his. "I have known for some time that our paths were destined to cross," she said, her voice filled with a hint of sadness. "But I did not know how, or when. Now, I understand. This is our fate, Deezen. We are meant to be together." Deezen's heart swelled with love and gratitude. He had found not only the woman who could save his life, but also the woman who could fill his heart with a love he had never dared to dream of. "I am honored, Ji Hai," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I am humbled by your grace. Your willingness to accept me, a man of such humble origins. I promise you, I will not fail you. I will not betray your trust." Ji Hai smiled, her eyes filled with tenderness. "I know you won't, Deezen," she said. "I see the goodness in your heart, the strength of your character. You are a man of honor, a man of integrity. And that is all that matters." She paused, her gaze locking with his. "But there is one thing you must know," she said, her voice becoming serious. "Our path will not be easy. There will be obstacles, challenges that will test our love, our resolve. We will face the disapproval of my family, the scorn of society. But if we are to overcome these trials, we must be strong, we must be united. We must never waver in our love for each other. Deezen nodded, his heart filled with determination. I understand, Ji-hai, he said. I am ready to face any challenge, to endure any hardship, as long as I have you by my side. Our love will be our strength, our guiding light in the darkness. Their hearts entwined, their destinies interwoven, Deezen and Ji-hai embarked on a clandestine courtship, their stolen moments of affection a precious balm against the harsh realities of their world. They met in secret, under the cloak of twilight, their whispers of love echoing in the stillness of the night. But their clandestine meetings could not remain hidden forever. Rumors reached the ears of Ji-hai's family, whispers of a commoner daring to court their noble daughter. Her father, a man of rigid adherence to social norms, was incensed by the audacity of this intrusion into their hallowed lineage. He forbade Ji-hai from seeing Deezen, threatening to disinherit her if she disobeyed. Ji-hai, torn between her filial duty and her burgeoning love for Deezen, found herself caught in a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. She loved her father, she respected his authority, but her heart belonged to Deezen, her soul resonated with his. Deezen, aware of the turmoil that raged within Ji-hai, sought to alleviate her burden. He penned a heartfelt letter to her father, a plea for understanding, a testament to his love for Ji-hai, and a promise to dedicate his life to making her happy. The letter, though eloquently crafted, fell on deaf ears. Ji-hai's father, blinded by prejudice, refused to acknowledge Deezen's sincerity. He saw him as a mere fortune hunter. A peasant seeking to elevate his station through marriage to his noble daughter. He resolved to put an end to this unsuitable relationship, devising a plan to marry Ji-hai off to a man of his choosing, a nobleman of wealth and influence, a match that would solidify their family's position in society. Ji-hai, upon learning of her father's intentions, was devastated. She pleaded with him to reconsider, to allow her to follow her heart, but her pleas were met with cold indifference. Desperate, she sought out Deezen, their meeting fraught with a sense of impending doom. She relayed her father's plans, her voice trembling, her eyes filled with despair. Deezen, his heart heavy, his spirit undeterred, held her close, offering comfort and reassurance. Do not despair, Ji-hai, he said, his voice firm, his gaze filled with unwavering love. Our love is stronger than any obstacle, any challenge that we may face. We will find a way, together. He proposed a daring plan, a desperate gamble that could either unite them forever or tear them apart irrevocably. They would elope, fleeing the constraints of their respective worlds, seeking refuge in a place where their love could blossom freely, unburdened by societal expectations. Ji-hai, though apprehensive, agreed. She could not bear the thought of being separated from Deezen, of being forced into a loveless marriage. She would rather face the unknown with him than endure a lifetime of misery without him. Under the cloak of a moonless night, their hearts pounding in unison, Deezen and Ji-hai slipped away from their respective homes, their footsteps guided by the beacon of their love. They traversed the silent, winding paths, their hands clasped tightly, their spirits soaring with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. They reached the outskirts of the village, where a small, unassuming cart awaited them, procured by Deezen with the last of his meager savings. They climbed aboard, their eyes reflecting the starlit sky, their hopes riding on the wings of their daring escape. Their journey was fraught with peril, their path shrouded in uncertainty. They knew that Ji-hai's father would not let them go easily, that his wrath would pursue them relentlessly. But they were prepared to face any hardship, to endure any trial, as long as they had each other. They traveled for days, their cart a vessel carrying their dreams, their love a compass guiding their way. They sought refuge in remote villages. Relying on the kindness of strangers, their story whispered in hushed tones, their plight echoing the universal longing for love and freedom. News of their elopement reached Ji-hai's father, his anger turning into a burning desire for revenge. He dispatched his most trusted retainers, men skilled in the art of pursuit. Their mission to bring back his daughter, to punish the commoner who dared to steal her heart. Deezen and Ji-hai, aware of the impending danger, sought shelter in a secluded temple nestled deep within the mountains. The temple, a haven of peace and tranquility, offered them a respite from their arduous journey, a sanctuary where they could gather their strength, renew their resolve. They found solace in the company of the monks, their wisdom and compassion a balm to their weary souls. The monks, recognizing the purity of their love, offered them their protection, their blessings a shield against the forces that sought to tear them apart. But their sanctuary could not remain hidden forever. Ji-Hai's father's retainers, their pursuit relentless, tracked them down to the mountain temple, their presence a dark cloud looming over their haven of peace. Dizin and Ji-Hai, their hearts filled with dread, prepared to face their pursuers, their love their only weapon, their bond their only defense. They knew that their fate hung in the balance. That their love would be tested, that their resolve would be tried. The tranquility of the mountain temple was shattered by the arrival of Ji-Hai's father's retainers, their faces grim, their resolve unyielding. They surrounded the temple, their presence a menacing force that threatened to engulf the sanctuary. The monks, though peaceful in nature, were not cowards. They stood their ground, their voices resonating with a collective strength, their message clear: they would not surrender the two souls who had sought their protection. The retainers, though hesitant to desecrate the sanctity of the temple, were driven by their master's wrath, their loyalty outweighing their respect for the sacred ground. They issued an ultimatum: surrender Dizin and Ji-Hai, or face the consequences. The monks, their hearts heavy, their options limited, turned to Dizin and Ji-Hai, their eyes filled with a mixture of pity and admiration. They had shielded them for as long as they could. But now, the decision rested in their hands. Dizin and Ji-Hai, their love a beacon in the face of adversity, embraced each other, their hearts beating in unison, their resolve strengthened by their unwavering bond. They would not allow their love to be a cause of bloodshed, a source of conflict that would violate the sanctity of the temple. They emerged from the temple, their hands clasped tightly, their heads held high, their spirits unbowed. They faced the retainers, their eyes filled with a quiet strength, their presence radiating a love that transcended the boundaries of their respective worlds. "We will not resist," Dizin said, his voice resonating with a calm determination. "We will return with you, but we ask that you spare the sanctity of this temple, that you do not violate the peace that it offers." The retainers, surprised by their acquiescence, agreed. They had expected a struggle, a desperate fight for freedom, but instead, they were met with a quiet surrender, a peaceful resolution that defied their expectations. Dizin and Ji-Hai, their hearts heavy, their spirits unyielding, walked alongside the retainers, their love a silent protest against the forces that sought to tear them apart. They knew that their journey was far from over, that their love would be tested, that their resolve would be tried. But they also knew that their bond was unbreakable. That their love would endure, that their spirits would remain united, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Dizin and Ji-Hai were brought before Ji-Hai's father, their heads bowed, their hands still clasped together, their love a silent defiance against the judgment that awaited them. Ji-Hai's father, his face etched with anger, his eyes burning with a cold fury, looked at them with a mixture of disappointment and resentment. He saw his daughter, his pride and joy, standing beside a commoner, a man he deemed unworthy of her love. He accused Dizin of seduction, of manipulating his daughter, of attempting to elevate his station through marriage to her noble bloodline. He demanded that Ji-Hai renounce her love for Dizin, that she return to her rightful place in society, that she accept the marriage he had arranged for her. Ji-Hai, her heart heavy, her spirit unyielding, refused. She declared her love for Dizin, her voice filled with a quiet strength that echoed her unwavering resolve. She would not deny her heart, she would not betray her love, she would not abandon the man who had captured her soul. Her father, his anger reaching its boiling point, threatened to disinherit her, to strip her of her noble status, to cast her out into the world, alone and destitute. Ji-Hai, her eyes filled with tears but her spirit unbroken, accepted his decree. She would rather face poverty, hardship, and social ostracism with Dizan than live a life of comfort and privilege without him. Her father, his heart hardened by pride and prejudice, pronounced his final judgment. Dizan would be banished from the village, never to return, his name erased from their lives. His memory condemned to oblivion. Ji Hai would be confined to her chambers, her freedom curtailed, her spirit broken, her future sealed. Dizan and Ji Hai, their hearts heavy, their spirits unbowed, accepted their fate. They would not beg for mercy, they would not plead for forgiveness. Their love was their crime, their bond their transgression. Their hearts their only judge. They were separated, their hands torn apart, their eyes locked in a silent promise, their love a beacon in the darkness of their despair. They would endure, they would survive, they would never forget the love that had defied the boundaries of their worlds, the love that had dared to challenge the judgment of society. Though separated by the rigid walls of societal expectation, Dizan and Ji Hai's love remained a flickering flame, a beacon of hope in the darkness of their despair. Dizan, banished from the village, wandered the land, his heart heavy, his spirit unbowed. He carried the memory of Ji Hai's love, her unwavering devotion, her courageous defiance of societal norms. Ji Hai, confined to her chambers, endured her solitude with grace and resilience. Her heart remained tethered to Dizan, her love a silent prayer, a whispered promise of reunion. She clung to the hope that their love would transcend the boundaries that separated them, that their paths would intertwine once more. News of their plight spread like wildfire throughout the land, their story whispered in hushed tones, their love a symbol of defiance against the rigid constraints of society. People from all walks of life were moved by their unwavering devotion, their courageous stand against the forces that sought to tear them apart. Sympathizers emerged, their hearts touched by their plight, their spirits ignited by their love. They secretly aided Dizan, providing him with shelter, food, and resources, their support a lifeline in his exile. They also reached out to Ji Hai, sending her messages of hope, relaying news of Dizan's well-being, assuring her that their love would not be forgotten, that their story would not be silenced. Ji Hai, buoyed by these whispers of hope, found solace in her solitude, her spirit strengthened by the knowledge that their love was a force that could not be extinguished. She used her time in confinement to reflect on their journey, to reaffirm her commitment to their love, to prepare for the day when they would be reunited. Dizan, inspired by the support he received, continued his travels, his heart filled with a renewed sense of purpose. He would not allow their love to be a casualty of societal prejudice, a victim of unjust judgment. He would find a way to clear his name, to prove his worth, to reclaim his place in society, not for his own sake, but for the sake of their love. He sought knowledge, he honed his skills, he dedicated himself to becoming a man worthy of Ji Hai's love, a man who could stand beside her, their bond a testament to the power of love to overcome any obstacle, to defy any challenge. Years passed, seasons changed, and the whispers of Dizan and Ji Hai's love story grew into a legend. A tale of unwavering devotion, a symbol of hope against the rigid constraints of society. Dizan, through his travels, his dedication to knowledge and skill, had transformed himself from a humble commoner to a man of wisdom and influence. He had earned the respect of the people, his reputation spreading far and wide, his name synonymous with integrity and compassion. Ji Hai, in her solitude, had blossomed into a woman of grace and resilience, her spirit unbroken, her love for Dizan a flame that burned brighter with each passing day. She had used her time in confinement to learn, to grow, to prepare for the day when she would be reunited with her beloved. The time had come for their paths to converge once more, for their love to be tested once again, for their destiny to unfold. Dizan, his heart filled with hope, his spirit strengthened by his journey, returned to the village, no longer a banished commoner, but a man of stature, a force to be reckoned with. He sought out Ji Hai's father, not with anger or resentment, but with understanding and compassion. He spoke of his love for Ji Hai, his unwavering devotion, his commitment to making her happy. He spoke of his journey, his transformation, his dedication to becoming a man worthy of her love. Ji Hai's father, his heart softened by time, his pride tempered by wisdom, listened to Dizen's words, his eyes reflecting a mixture of regret and admiration. He saw in Dizen not a commoner seeking to elevate his station, but a man of honor, a man of integrity, a man who truly loved his daughter. He acknowledged his past mistakes, his rigid adherence to societal norms, his blindness to the true essence of love. He recognized the strength of Dizen and Ji Hai's bond, their unwavering devotion, their courageous defiance of his judgment. He extended his hand to Dizen, a gesture of acceptance, a symbol of reconciliation. He welcomed him back into their lives, not as a commoner, but as a man worthy of his daughter's love. Dizen and Ji Hai, their hearts overflowing with joy, their spirits soaring with relief, were reunited. Their love a beacon that illuminated the path towards a future where their bond would be celebrated, not condemned, where their love would be a testament to the power of the human heart to transcend boundaries, to defy expectations, to conquer all.